Hey guys, so sorry for kind of changing things up on you relatively last minute about coming and talking. Um, just decided that it would be better for me to do a talk next semester early on to focus more on dedicated and boards and the spring semester rather than try to do it all now when you guys are getting ready for finals and everything. But I am going to go ahead and talk to you about what you should do between now and with the end of winter break, really the beginning of your spring semester, and maybe even a few days into it. So, the first thing that I think you should do, one is you obviously need to relax a little bit, but realize that this is really, really good study time. Um, with that, what I would do and what I did last year is I took the first day completely off. I drove home. I spent the first day down. I gave myself a day to just do nothing because you need that break. But the second day, I got up and I took one of the official USMLE practice exams. The reason for that was not to really see how I was doing, nothing, not reviewing, not learning, nothing. I just wanted to see what those tests were like. Because something you're going to hear and something you're going to notice, especially for those of you who are taking USMLE, is the questions are different. They're different than lecture, they're different than COMBANK, they're different than USMLE RX. They're very distinct and vague, and it's an adjustment at first to be able to do them. So when I took this first practice test, most of the test I was sitting there kind of trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Um, but with that, you also have to realize that you haven't taken 5 systems courses, some of which are pretty big and important on USMLE. Like repro endo is one of their bigger core subjects that show up on the test as far as percent goes. GI was all over some of the tests too. So realize that you're probably not going to have a clue on them. That's fine. Give your best guess and move on. Don't be the person who's sitting there looking stuff up, trying to figure out and get the best score so that they can tell their friends that they got a 230 on their practice test before they even finished second year. Who cares? Because it doesn't matter. One of the other things with this is when you buy this practice test, make sure you do not buy it on the timed mode. You have an option to do it untimed, where it gives you 4.5 hours basically per block to do it, versus the timed mode where you get 4 hours total. So you get each block is going to be 40 questions if you do an NBME, so USMLE style, 40 questions, 4 blocks, 160 total. So that's 3 blocks short of what an actual USMLE test is. Now, if you do a COMSA, they're a little different. I believe they were 200 questions for 50 question blocks. Check that, actually. NBMEs are 50 question blocks. Scratch everything I said. So 200 questions no matter what. Now, with that, you don't need to be trying to time yourself at this point. There's no reason. You're not even close to being good enough at this to where you should be timing. Put it on untimed and just get through it. That's it. Okay? So all you're going to do is you're going to take that test. You're going to get to the end. You're going to see what score it spits out. It's going to give you a raw score, and there's going to be a raw score conversion scale. So look at what your converted score is. Go and look at your breakdown for the subjects. If you were really, really low in repro endo, GI, derm, psych, and biochem, that's not unusual. You haven't probably looked at biochem in a while, and you haven't learned those other courses. While renal, respiratory, and cardio should probably be decent for you, maybe not in the upper range of those scores, but you've at least done them and they're fresh. So that's the thing you should look at is, okay, where are my weaknesses? If you haven't covered it yet, it's not really a weakness, just move on. But if you just took cardio and your cardio score was still pretty low, it tells you that cardio might be something that's going to be a struggle for you. After that, put it down. Don't look at a single question on it. Do not review the test at all. Literally at all. Don't look at a single question. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, it doesn't matter because what you learn off of that is not going to stick anyways, so you're wasting your time. 2 is when you buy these practice tests, if you take a test in December and then go to take it again in May and you had never reviewed it the first time, it's like a brand new test. You're not going to remember a single question. I did that for NBME 18. I took it over spring break and then took it late June. and only recognized one question on the whole test, and that's just because I remembered it being hard, and that's a much shorter span. Now, for those of you wanting to take USMLE, so you want to take an NBME practice exam, the exams available to you are 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. My high recommendation is do not take NBME 18 this December as a gauge, as your primary gauge of where you're at, that practice exam. Reason being is that's the oldest test out of those ones. 20 through 24 are all brand new this year. So 18 has the most data on its correlation to actual USMLE score, and it tends to be the closest to what your actual score would be. So that's one you want to save for a little bit later and dedicate it. It's also pretty tough, but just being smart there. I was pretty pissed when I found out that 18 was the most accurate, and I had just taken it over spring break. So it kind of threw me into a spot of, can I trust the score that I got out of it? Now, if you're taking a COMSA, you're only going to be able to buy COMSA 101, 102, or 104. 103 and 105, the school can only buy. As far as reviewing those tests go, doesn't matter because they don't let you look at a single question afterwards anyways, which is why they're kind of a ripoff. So I recommend to anyone who's thinking about taking USMLE to take the NBME practice exam. Anyone who is absolutely positive they're not taking step 1, they're only taking level 1, take a COMSA. They just get an idea of what it's like. Now, I wouldn't have done that because I wanted to take step. I wanted the NBME tests, but I know that not everyone's like me. Not everyone's going to take step 1. So again, if you're going to take an NBME, take something that's 20 through 24. Doesn't matter which one. They were all pretty fair. A couple harder than others, but the score reports will reflect, it's hard for everyone. Just look at your score report, look at the score it gave you, write it down so you can keep track of it, and move on. Don't look at a single question. Okay? Don't take NBME 18. Do not. You want to save that one. All right. So the next thing after that is once you've taken that test for that day, that's going to realistically be 4 to 5 hours of your day. Move on, go do something else. The next day, you should have a subject that you want to try to cover over winter break. For me, I recovered all of Sketchy Micro. That's what I wanted to do. I did not want to put a lot of brain power into studying. I just wanted to be there, rewatch the videos, and get through it. I also found a Anki deck that was basically just screenshots of the pictures, and it would ask you what each symbol in the picture meant. So it was a way for me to check myself after watching 5 to 10 videos. I wouldn't do them immediately after because it's too easy to remember them at that point. And I really only just did them once, just make sure I caught everything in the video. And if I realized I didn't remember something very well, I just watched the video again. Doing those on 2 or 2.5 speed was more than reasonable because you know most of what's in there. If I say Staph aureus, most of you, the picture will pop into your head. You already know a lot of it. You just got to go fill in the blanks of the things you forgot. So that's what I did over break. I did all of Sketchy. I think it's 14 hours total, and on double speed, it was, half of that. It took me a little over a week because I would only put like a few hours into it a day, and with the flashcards, it kind of slowed me down. But try not to pick a subject like biochem. It's an investment. That is a big subject that is better reviewed over a little bit longer of a span. I know you guys have a few weeks from like the 16th to the 6th or something. So if you wanted to try biochem, go ahead if you really feel like you can get through it and retain that much information in that short of a time. I mean, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks-ish, whatever it is not that much to cover that bulk of a material and really have it stick. The biggest thing for reviewing over break is getting concepts down. To me, biochem doesn't make sense. So Sketchy, Micro, maybe even some of the farm is a good way to do it because it's a little more passive. It's a little easier on you. So outside of that, like I said, take downtime because you're going to get spring break, and that's really the last break you're going to get until, depending on when you take step or level 1, July, and you guys are starting rotations late July anyways. So give yourself a little bit of leeway and go relax. But realize this is really, really good, prime, uninterrupted study time to go and review a subject. Maybe look at something like immuno or whatever. Now, one of the other recommendations I have for, it's not for everyone, but what I did was tutoring during the spring semester. I felt like I got a grasp on how second year courses were, and I wanted a way to learn some of this other stuff again better and get paid for it. So I tutored immuno, physio, and pharm, and I didn't really have to review any of those during dedicated. It just put me in a place where I was forced to review it. I was forced to teach it, so I actually learned it going in. So once I got to dedicated, I didn't have to take 3 days to go back through immuno, or go look back over pharm and stuff. Physio is kind of built into all your courses, so I don't think it's a bad one to review anyways, but tutoring it definitely helped to make sure I didn't have to. And physio is the second biggest topic on USMLE, so just another thing to think about there. With tutoring, one thing you'll notice is if you look at the notes in like first aid or a review resource for what you need for boards, it's obviously not going to be the same as what the first years are going to need for immuno. Immuno during first year is significantly worse than it is than immuno for boards. Immuno for boards was pretty straightforward. No one cares about the different complement cascades and all these different pathways and all of that. They just need to make sure you understand how it works. And if you have a C6 deficiency, what does that mean? Things like that. It's very straightforward. What are you susceptible to? So that would be my big piece of advice for those who can handle it, is tutor if you can. I know that starts early, so that's why I mention it here. That's what I would do if I were you. And I would do that again because it really did save me. Outside of that, guys, just kind of relax. You're starting to get into the prime time of board study, and yeah, stress is gonna start getting up there. I understand it. It was for me. I was full blast. But don't panic, because there's people around you can ask questions, people who have been through it. I'm here if you need to ask something. Just whatever you do, review something. One comment I want to make for some people, because I know a lot of people are really heavy on Zonky, but most people kind of fizzle out once they realize how much of a time commitment it is. So if you have not started Zonky, don't. Okay? If you want to try it in the spring to keep up with the courses that are in the spring, more power to you. But I don't recommend trying to go back and catching up on biochem and cardio and renal and respiratory and all of those on Zonky, because it is so much info. You will be so slammed by review cards and new cards every day that you're going to neglect class. There's just no way. The reason Zonky works is because it's so much info spread out over 2 years, essentially, is how it should be done. If you try to do it in the 3 to 4 months that are between, January and you're dedicated, I think that's suicide. Okay. So if you haven't done it, don't stress. In place of that, one of the things I did if I wasn't keeping up with Zonky is I would just pull out first aid and I would read the entire MSK chapter. Just really skim and fly through it. Remind yourself that these things exist. It's been a little bit since you guys took it, but you need to be able to know how to diagnose von Willebrand's disease. The different platelet factors and, a GP2B3A inhibitors. What are those? What's the disease where it attacks that receptor? You just need to see it again, because those details are going to leave you. I promise you. Literally doing second year or third year material now, studying for step 2, there's things that I knew cold for step 1 that are gone. It's just the name of the game. The details are going to disappear. All you need to do, if you haven't been keeping up with Zonky, is just remind your brain that, hey, this exists, and just put it back into the hard drive again. Just read through the chapters. If you can do that once a month for each of the courses you've covered, you go into dedicated at least not going in blind. You have somewhere to start from. So that's really all I've got for you guys. Just breathe, get through the rest of the semester. I will be there early next semester to talk more in detail about dedicated and what the daily schedule was like for me, kind of the ins and outs of that, and, answer any questions you guys have. I know I got sent a pretty long question sheet from you guys. Most of them are more pertinent to the spring, so that's why I'm not going to dive into them. So again, take a practice exam, untimed. Just look at your score report and move on. Don't look at a single question. Review a subject. For me, it was micro. Pick something that's kind of more condensed like that, where you can cover the entire subject within your winter break and it not be this 8 hours a day kind of thing. That is not what you should be doing. If you're putting 4 hours a day in, that is more than enough. That's kind of where you should be. You're better off studying a smaller amount better and retaining and understanding it. And after that, again, if you haven't started Zonky, don't stress. Just flip through your first aid book every now and then. When you get to dedicated, that's when you're going to put all the pieces back in. Don't be stressed that you learned something in heme, like all of the different lymphomas and leukemias, which I'm sure have now left your head. Don't be stressed that you can't diagnose that anymore. You don't remember what the translocation was. That will come back. That's what dedicated is for. But if you just look through stuff and, oh yeah, I remember that was this. I remember that was this, and just move on. Don't do a whole lot of passive studying. You want to be as active as possible, but at the same time, don't burn yourself out. The spring is long. The courses are easier, without a doubt. They helped you guys out some by putting repro at the end, because during repro was some of the best board study that I got the entire time. I finished all of biochem during repro. So it's going to be a nice, easier segue into dedicated for you guys. So literally just keep doing what you're doing. If you have questions, reach out and just keep chugging along. You'll get through it. I didn't think I ever would. It didn't feel like I would. It'll be over soon, and then you'll be a third year, and you'll know less than you think you do, and you'll have to actually treat patients. So good luck to you guys.